us, leave your cheese to sour. Join us, come and waste an hour or two. We've got magic to do just for you. Just for you. Welcome to Studio Tenn Talks. I am Patrick Cassidy. I'm the artistic director for Studio Tenn. Happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. We had an incredible day yesterday. My wife and I, we went to our good friends, the Monroes, and we hung out, social distancing outside, and they have a lake. And we saw this, we got to be on the lake, and we got to have dinner with our friends. And then we saw some fireworks later. I was on Leaper's Fork. I was at Jameson Station. I was all over Tennessee, but outside and doing the social distancing thing. I want to say, before we get into this incredible guest tonight, Mr. Ken Page, but before that, I want to talk about our summer camp, which starts tomorrow. We have still a couple of slots open. It has been our second camp in the last couple months. It's amazing. We have advanced and we have beginners, and we're going to do a production number and singing lessons and dance lessons and monologue stuff and scene study. And that's all next week. So if you haven't and you want to go to Studio Tenn education program, studiotenn.com, and you can sign up for the camp, and it starts tomorrow. Okay. Without further ado, I want to talk about this gentleman, Ken Page. He has had a career for well over 40 years. So you and I, Ken, we both saw that show, Your American Cousin, Our American Cousin. No. And he has worked in nearly every area of the entertainment field. He made his Broadway debut as Nicely Johnson in the all-black version of Guys and Dolls. I dreamed one night I got on the boat to heaven, right? Not the song. He's an original cast member of the Tony Award-winning Best Musical Cats in 1982 for playing Deuteronomy. And in Ain't Misbehavin, he is the original cast member, for which he received the New York Drama Desk Award. He got the Theater World Award for Guys and Dolls. He is the voice of Oogie Boogie, the main antagonist in the Tim Burton, Danny Elfman film, The Nightmare Before Elm Street. He also appeared on Broadway in The Wiz, in Ain't Nothing But the Blues, The Wizard of Oz, A Christmas Carol. Other film and TV credits include All Dogs Go to Heaven, All Do Anything, which he and I were in together, Torch Song Trilogy, Dreamgirls, Sable, South Central, and Charmed. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ken Page.
Hello! I got magic to do just for you.
It's all that good hand movement.
Yeah.
How are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I was just talking about it. We had a great 4th of July amongst everything, but I got to get outside a little bit, which was nice.
Yes, absolutely.
Got to look at this beautiful.
Yeah, the park near me is my saving grace. I just go in the park and socially distance from everyone, but near the birds and the bees and the trucks and the trees. And
let's start. I wanted to start right in with that, because you, I know you are born and raised in St. Louis, right?
I am, yes.
And we'll talk about the Muni in a minute. Tell me, what was it like growing up in St. Louis?
Well, yeah, it was great. I mean, St. Louis has a history of having a lot of support for the arts. It always has. Mm-hmm. And for me, I started out doing it when I was, I think, 4th grade. I was singing with a group called the Marion Chorus, where they took us from our school, St. Nicholas, and they took us over to Holy Innocents, good Catholic boy here, Holy Innocents, and we sang with the choir with them. And then this wonderful, everybody has a teacher that changed their lives. This wonderful nun, Sister Ruth Cecilia, who has left the convent and became just Lois. But at any rate, she left. She was our choir director, and she left that school and came to our school and instituted a speech program, music program. And that's what really got me going, because I joined a thing here called the Bellarmine Speech League, where, you'd learn a speech in whatever these different categories. And we'd go and compete with all the other elementary schools all around the St. Louis Archdiocese area.
Right.
So it got me started on the road, and I took singing lessons with her and on and on and on. And my 8th grade, I have to tell you this, I love. My 8th grade, all-black school, this is how much of a rebel she was. We did Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And all everybody says, "You go, Sister Ruth."
And you were who?
I was the prince.
Oh,
Not
of course you
comfortably,
were.
I was the prince. Yeah.
Oh, we have a quick question. We're going to get questions right now. Hello, watching from South Dakota. Have a great night and enjoying us. Thank you, Jessica Bauman. So happy you're watching. So tell me about this. At what point during your early development and singing and did somebody say, you have an incredible, resonating, gorgeous baritone, incredible voice? At what point did that happen? Because somebody said it to you.
Yeah. Well, I think by the time I got to high school, I mean, I was, like I said, I was singing already in elementary school, but by the time I got to high school, my voice had matured a bit and so forth. My first show musical in high school was Funny Girl.
Oh.
And I was the Ziegfeld tenor. His love makes you beautiful. And so my voice had matured enough to do that. Scared to death, but I did it. And at that point, my voice teacher at school, Sister Luana, had started to sort of push me towards opera. She wanted me to go ahead and try
because you have that facility. You have.
Well, I can honestly say I think I had that facility, but it didn't move me, And I see opera singers now, and they're glorious, and they're just amazing. But you have to have the affinity for it. Because it's not easy and it's hard work and you have to study very hard. And I wanted to do musicals, and it was so funny. I remember we were singing this, working on this song called The Earl King, which was a German leader song that was translated into English. Who rides so late through night wind. It was very dramatic.
Yes.
And I was just like, and finally Sister Luana, I'll never forget it. She just stopped and she looked at me. She says, "All right." And she went to the cupboard. She pulled out On the Street Where You Live, and she put it on the piano. And she just started.
I have often walked.
Yeah, and I started singing. And at the end of it, she said, "All right, you happy?" Yes, I am happy.
That's great. Alice Raver says, "Wow, my father used to take me on the road trip to the Muni each summer." Oh, well, Alice, we're going to talk about the Muni. In fact, let's talk about the Muni now. So. Sure. You have performed first of all, tell our viewers who don't know, because I got my equity card there. Tell us about the St. Louis Muni Opera, what it means to St. Louis and yourself.
Well, it's a huge institution for St. Louis. It was started around 1905 or something, but legitimately like 1919, I think, something like that. Anyway, we're in our 102nd year. This would have been this summer.
Yeah.
And as you know, of course, we were in it together. We celebrated the 100-year anniversary.
100 years, yeah.
And for me, I would go to the Muni. I was so blessed. My best friend's mom, Elizabeth Clark, used to take myself and my best friend Luther. Yeah. And we sit up in the free seats, which they have at the Muni. There are 1,000, maybe even more, but 1,000 free seats because it's a civic theater.
That's right. That's right.
And you can go there and sit. So we went up there and I saw, oh my God. At that time, they were bringing in shows from New York. I saw Applause. I saw Seesaw. I saw On Their Road to. I saw Over Here.
And they had stars too, didn't they, Ken?
Like, yeah. These were the original
stars would come in, right?
Absolutely. They would people would come in to do shows. The first time I saw an African American on stage in a musical, they brought in the Broadway company of Hello, Dolly with Pearl Bailey.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
And I saw it like 3 times, during that week, and it was just But it was what really whet my appetite for the musical theater, the Muni, at the Muni. And I was fortunate enough, many years later, to become one of the ensemble members there. They used to, in the old days, they had a singing chorus and a dancing chorus separate. Dancers could move a little, singers could sing a little. But
the actors together, dancers dance and the singers sing.
They put us all together. We were hell on wheels. But, so I finally got in at 18. I'd auditioned, I think, 3 years before that. My voice hadn't changed. And I would always sing If I Loved You, which song I had worked on with Sister Luana, and my voice left. But my voice hadn't matured enough, and I would always crack on the high note. How I love you. Okay, well, you come on back next year, and we'll see that.
And now, and as I said, and now you can sing a third above that. Now.
Yeah, well,
no problem. No,
it's okay. Anyway, so I got in. That's how I got my equity card. 2 seasons, 1 half each season, and I left college after those 2 seasons and came to New York. But the Muni was where everything started, and so lucky am I to get to work there as many times as I have now.
It says, and tell me if this is right, it says that you have done 41 productions for the Muni?
Yes, I think it's 42 now as of last year, I believe.
That is incredible. And of course,
it is a remember half of them now. It's like, what? Who did? Oh, yeah, that show. It was long,
and he was on the show. Yeah, and the amazing Mike Isaacson who runs it, and he is just
Yes.
absolutely glorious. He was so great. He did our show, and we talked about the meaning. We talked about the state of the theater and all that.
Absolutely.
And I think this is the first time in their 102-year history that they had to cancel their season.
It is. Right? First time.
Amazing. So, well, let's talk about it, because as you know, I got my equity card there in 1977, playing Rolf in The Sound of Music, my mom playing Maria. Yeah. And you and I got to do the 100-year celebration. I think we have a photograph. Is there a photograph? Do you see me? The two
there
of us
we are.
My hair disappears in the light, but boy, do you look handsome.
It's your halo. It's your halo.
But that was incredible. And did you sing Memory from Cassidy?
I did. Yeah.
And you were glorious. So I want to talk about Cats in a minute. You were in the original Cats in 1982.
Right.
Just so you know, you don't know, I was 19. I auditioned for that show, and Terry Mann got the part, and he just
you made a great tugger.
It was fun. The Rum Tum Tugger. Let's show that clip, though. We have a little clip from you from Cats, and you played Old Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy? It's right.
Old Deuteronomy, yes.
Here we go.
With cats, some say one rule is true. Don't speak till you are spoken to. Myself I do not hold with that. I say you should address a cat, but always keep in mind that he resents familiarity.
That's from what was it, 1997? The film version.
We have somebody that loved that performance. Love that performance.
He's Jellicle.
This is Bex. Say hello, Bex.
Hi, Bex. Meow. Meow, 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 meow.
So 1980. Tell me now. That was everybody in town. Every actor in town wanted to be in that show. It had come over. Excuse me. Trevor Nunn directed. Gillian Lynn choreographed. Tell me about the auditioning process and getting that and all that.
Well, you know, it was interesting because they, as you know, they had auditioned for 6 months. I mean, it was really, really crazy. As you said, everybody was up for it. Everybody wanted to do it. All of Broadway, all of Hollywood, everybody. And I'd gone to the closing performance of Ain't Misbehavin on Broadway. I wasn't in the show then, but I went to the closing performance. And God rest him, Bernie Jacobs, who was half of the Schubert organization, he and Jerry Schoenfeld, said to me, you know, Kenny, I think there's a part in Cats for you. Now, I had been hearing about it, but the way I understood it was a dance show, and it was for dancers, and I just didn't really think much about it. And he said, long story short, he said, you know, go to Vinnie Liff, who was the casting director, and get the music for the part of Old Deuteronomy, which I did do. And I learned it while we were filming the NBC TV special of Ain't Misbehavin in Hollywood.
Oh my God.
And I came back and I auditioned on a Monday. And this is like the last week after 6 months, mind you. I auditioned on I think it was, Monday. They had me come back like Friday and do a monologue and sing again. You know, I learned the addressing of cats, the number you just heard. And they had me do a monologue. And I remember Trevor Nunn, who was so wonderful. He came to the foot of the stage and he spoke always in a whisper.
Very soft, yep.
Yes, very soft. And he says, your talents are many-fold and manifest. Thank you so much. And I thought, gone, didn't get it. The kids are dead. I'm
but
done.
learned something. You learned something.
But you're out, you know. So I went away to Fire Island with a friend of mine who also ended up in the show. And when I got back on Monday, they called and asked if I would like to play Old Deuteronomy Cats. Now, I can tell you, for us all, I mean, it was just because everybody by this point was waiting to find out who was going to be in it. You know, Betty and I laughed, Betty Buckley and I talked about how, you know, they had said Cher was going to do it at a point, and They just kept throwing all these names.
I remember, and so many friends. I mean, obviously Terrence Mann, Terry's in it, and Cynthia Rubia, the original White Cat, wasn't she?
Absolutely. Yeah. So many people, and we were the ones, and it was really something because it was one of those pieces again where everybody wanted to do it, and there's always auditions. You go in, you audition, you hope you get it, whatever. But Cats, because of its success in London, was this other whole thing, a whole other phenomenon that was getting ready to happen.
Well, it's lived up to it. I mean, didn't you go to the revival, like the opening night of the revival?
I did.
How was that?
It was interesting.
Meow, meow.
No, it was interesting because there were a few choreographic changes, and with all due respect to Andy Blankenville, it didn't really enhance it. It just sort of changed some things, And I think what we all now know, certainly with the film having come out, is that Gillian Lynn's work in the show is a huge part of what it is. It's the signature of what we know to be Cats, right? So the changes were a little forced on the production, in my opinion, but all the people were amazing. They were all terrific. And a friend of mine played Deuteronomy, and it was great.
You said something about Trevor Nunn, and I'll tell you, I concur with. I auditioned. I was in the final callback for Sunset Boulevard, which Trevor Nunn also directed, and it was myself and Alan Campbell who got it, and Greg Evigan. And I remember coming into the audition, and Mr. Weber was there too. And I remember, and he was so wonderful, Trevor. He took me, led me over to the piano, and he talked very softly. He said, I just love you. I've admired your work for so long. And he says, and he sat there and he spoke with me for 10 minutes. And as he spoke to me, it was nothing to do with the audition. It was just about me and him. And I felt so great. And then he says, hey, you want to sing a little bit? We'll sing a little bit.
It's just a matter of, just sing a little.
That's right. And I sang, and this time I cracked on the "If I Loved You" high note, but it was Sunset Boulevard, and I thought, I didn't get the part, and I didn't. But but I learned so much. He was
well, he was so giving in what he said to you. I mean, I had done this monologue from a show I had done called Lewis, which is about Louis Armstrong. I played his mentor, Joe Oliver. And I did the monologue and so on and so forth. And he came to the edge of the stage. Again, this was the first time or second, whatever. And he says, oh, yes, Joe Oliver. He was quite an innovator and blah, blah. He knew all of this stuff about this character that I thought nobody will know this. It's an original musical, blah, 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 blah. But he knew all of the stuff. And like you said, it was all about, I think now I can say, I think he was trying to see how you related. And what your real temperature was as opposed to what you were preparing. Very smart. I've learned that from him as a director. I try to do that. But it really did. It took you away from the nerves of performing and it let you communicate.
That's exactly. Yeah. No, and the follow-up to it, the addendum was he ended up writing me a beautiful letter. And he literally said to me, that your work was at the highest standard, and he says, and he actually said, but unfortunately in the view of Mr. Weber, they thought the part was just a little high for you, but he said, but your work was wonderful, and I have the letter. I framed the letter. Oh yeah,
well that's
learned something from the audition.
Absolutely, and I think that's a wonderful thing to do because we go out there, we put ourselves on the line like that, and oftentimes, thank you.
Yeah.
And when you get somebody who takes the time to really give you feedback and support, it means a lot. Look at both of us; we never forgot it, right?
That's right. So I want to go back to. So you made your Broadway debut in Guys and Dolls, and it was an all-black version of Guys and Dolls. Is that what it was? Yes. And what theater were you at? Where did it play?
It played the Broadway Theater.
Oh,
on what is that? 50.
And you sang "Sit Down, You're Rocking the Boat."
Sit Down, You're Rocking the Boat. Oh. Yeah. And they did a wonderful thing because they were very religious about not changing a note. Joe Lesser, Sullivan Lesser, God bless her. They had someone sit there with the score and literally follow the score as we were singing different numbers. You couldn't change a note.
And I know that song. That song is like, hello.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was up there. But what was great about it is we were out of town in Washington, D.C., and the last bit of the song, people were kind of like, is that it? No, that was it. Sit down, you're rocking, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. And they were like, oh, great, great, great. So they thought, well, okay, we're going to change the last, I think, 6 measures or 8 measures, something like that. The people said, the devil drive you under, it was so heavy. And they would sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down. You're rocking the boat, which was a little real gospel thing.
Right.
But once we did that, people thought, oh, great. Now, we're going. And it ended up, they wrote a whole encore to the number. With a whole full
one
gospel.
of those, like
oh yeah,
like
full on.
Yeah, wow.
It would start out with this drum, why don't you? And General Cartwright would say, why don't you? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why don't you sit down? Oh, sit down.
Oh my God!
Big, full on. And I think the most encores I did, if I'm not mistaken now, was 4. Because we would finish it, and the audience would go.
Is there a film of that anywhere? Does anybody have?
We did a show. Not probably all of that because we just did the number, but we did a show called The Big Event. Do you remember that? It was on NBC.
Yeah.
And we did the number in Schubert Alley, but we only did the song proper. We didn't do the. But on my CD, page by page, I did get, and on the cast album, the encore is on. They left off the last bit of the last verse, chorus, whatever, so that they could put the encore on there. So it actually is recorded on the cast album.
God, I have to. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And it seems to me, I mean, nobody could obviously do it like you, but that sounds to me like they've done with productions that have followed. Kind of, it's become a staple. Because it's too good. Yeah.
Well, the idea worked. Now, I have seen it with all, again, due respect, because for us, it was authentic and it was real. I've seen versions of the idea that were like, well, okay. And to me, it's always that thing of don't sing an encore unless they want to hear it. So to just thrust it upon the audience is like, now here's an encore. And we only did it incrementally because the audience was demanding it, But I think it's great, and I feel good about knowing that that's sort of an imprint we left on the actual show that I think the Broadway revival with Peter Gallagher and so forth, I think in that number, Walter Bobby, they did a version of an encore in that production. Right. So at least it's made, an impression that way.
Well, I'm going to tell our viewers, and you too can listen to that recording on page, right? Mr. Ken Page, page by page, Mr. Ken Page's album.
Or you can also, Motown produced the Broadway cast album, and it is out there, so you can find it.
So, okay, so let's go back. Then let's go back. I want to talk to you about, I know that was your Broadway debut, but then after that, the next show was The Wiz, right?
Yes.
And you replaced Mr. Ted Ross as the Wiz.
Actually, I replaced a gentleman named James Wigfall. I always loved saying his name.
Ted was the original, and then
Ted Ross was the original. And then a gentleman named Al Fan, then a gentleman named James Wigfall, and I replaced James Wigfall. But I like to say, because it sounds like it was like 5 years after it opened, this was all within like a year and a half of the run,
So I never got to see the original Wiz, but I'll tell you really quickly. So Stephanie Mills, who played Dorothy, she was in a show with my mother and father on Broadway called Maggie
Flynn. Sure.
Irene Cara. Stephanie Mills and Sharon Brown were the 3 young girls.
How about those 3?
And Stephanie had the kids had one song. There were 3 guys too, but the kids had a song, and Stephanie had the solo, and she was like 10, and she had that voice.
Oh yeah, I think that was one of the things that was so amazing about her in The Wiz is that the talent at her age, and I think she was like 13 or 14 when she started in it, was just, it was tremendous. She didn't have like a little girl's kind of cute. She sings nice. She had an amazing voice,
incredible,
as and the connection to the material for her was real. She really was a young kid, and her singing Home. I always love Soon As I Get Home, the precursor to Home.
Yeah.
There were nights singing with her where I had to make myself remember to sing in our duet, Be a Lion. Because sometimes all the time, but the other night she was even more focused in it. And it was just magical. Yeah. Truly, truly magical.
Well, we're gonna play a little game.
Okay.
we call this game, we call it Remember the Lyric.
remember the lyric.
And the lyric is, and it is going to be from a show you did, from a part you played. I'm going to sing a lyric, then you're going to sing a lyric. Okay?
Okay.
So here we go. Say what you wanna, but I'm here to stay, 'cause I'm a mean old lion.
You can go where you wanna, but don't get in my way, 'cause I'm a mean old lion.
And I'll be standing. I can't get up there.
If you're standing in a draft, you don't hear me laugh. And if I happen to come around, well, you best,
We've got it. We've got
Yes.
it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ken Page doing Mean Old Lion. Do we have it? We don't have it. Oh, I thought we had it. We had it. We have a whole nother performance of it. You don't have it over there? Oh, we have another clip. But wait, I have the whole performance of you doing it. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Gypsy of the Year, right?
Yes, exactly. The Gypsy of the Year.
Yes.
So if you want to see it, go to YouTube and get Gypsy of the Year. Okay, so you and tell me about that too, because I wanted to know about it, because it's going to lead me to my next question. So The Wiz happens, and it's an all African American cast, right?
Yep.
And in 1976, 75,
it started in 74, and it came to Broadway in 75.
So how was that at that time in New York?
Phenomenal.
It
was the first show. I mean, before that, we had Hello Dolly, which was an all-black version of, and of course, we had Guys and Dolls, which came after The Wiz had opened. But The Wiz was the first show that was really, the cast was African-American. The creative team, Jeffrey Holder was the director, costume designer. George Faison was the choreographer. Of course, the cast, as I said. Ken Harper, whose idea the whole thing was African-American as a producer. And I think that's part of the story that doesn't get told very often anymore. He was a radio disc jockey. And he had this idea to do a black version of The Wizard of Oz, and he went around to all kinds of people until he finally found somebody who said, okay, Charlie Smalls, the composer.
Great. And what a score, too.
What a score. Oh. What a score. And he, they did it, let's say. But he, even at a point where the show, when they came into New York, there was a period where there was a possibility of it closing. And he went to 20th Century Fox, I believe is the story, and he said, if you will loan me, I suppose, I forget how much it was, like 150,000, something like that, to do a commercial for the show. I think we can turn this around. So they did this kick-ass commercial that started with Ease on Down the Road. Ease on down the road with the Wiz. And it shows Stephanie and Tiger and Ted and Battle. Come on in. Ease on down the road. And it had a real pop sensibility. It wasn't like a Broadway sort of thing. And then they went to Stephanie's church. It's one of the biggest churches in Brooklyn. Emmanuel, I think it is. And talked to the congregation. They went to all these different churches. And the people from the churches started buying tickets and bringing busloads of people, and the commercial caught on to the general public. And within like a month or so, the whole thing turned around and they were sold out.
Oh.
And went on to win, I believe it's like 11 Tony Awards.
Yeah, I mean, incredible. And they've been trying, Des McAnuff, they've been trying to get a revival to come, to find that right thing. Because that score, I went, and I know it didn't do well, but I went to the opening of the movie.
Yeah.
I went to the
there was some sort of screening they did like at midnight for the Broadway people.
Oh, I saw it at the Cinerama Dome in California, and I was mesmerized. I mean, Diana Ross and Michael Jackson and Ted Ross. I was like, holy smokes. It was, and Nipsey Russell was in that movie. Right. Amazing.
I thought it was so great that Mabel King, who played Eveline, and Ted Ross they were from the Broadway company. Right. They got to immortalize their roles on film, which is terrific.
So tell me about this, because in lieu of what's been going on, obviously, Broadway until the first of the year and us as well. Tell me, since then, and even before that, how has it changed for the African-American actor in New York City? Is it better? Does it still have a long ways to go? Where is it right now?
I would say it has a ways to go. It's better than it was, and I think there's an old saying: we're not where we were, and we're not where we're going, but thank God we're not where we've been. I think that's
right.
how it's better, but I see a little bit of a reversal because when I did Guys and Dolls, there was a time they called the Great Black Way because there were so many black shows on Broadway. There was The Wiz, Guys and Dolls, Arms Too Short to Box with God, Porgy and Bess, Trim and Nisha, Bubbling Brown Sugar. I mean,
What?
and more than that. Me and Bessie with Linda Hopkins. And for the first time, there was a proliferation of shows for African Americans to be in, not just one show that one or two people were in that were quote unquote white shows. I think, unfortunately, it's gone a little bit backwards from where it was,
Is that because we did here at Studio Tenn did a show with some Tennessee actors here for Black Lives Matter, and we talked about one of the things that was brought up was that there's not a lot of black producers. That's why I was so happy to hear about. I didn't realize that The Wiz had an African American producer.
Absolutely, and that's one of the most important parts about the story is this man spearheaded this and saved it, and he was African American. I mean, there weren't many. There was Ken Harper, Ashton Springer, a couple of others at the time. And now someone just asked a question today, are there any African-American producers? I think there are people who contribute probably to shows. I don't know if there are any lead producers now.
Right.
And I think that has a lot to do with what you see because it's coming from a different perspective.
Right.
And I don't think everybody is as concerned as they could be about, and we need more black producers. We need more black writers. We need desperately more black directors. And I'm talking about the musical theater, not necessarily the straight plays. Yeah. Because someone asked me at one point, where are all the black directors? I said, well, somewhere trying to get a job. You know what I mean? Right. Because unfortunately, we only get to direct when it's a black project. And how many of those are there? So there's the start of it.
Right.
You don't get to direct My Fair Lady as an African American. You don't get to direct necessarily West Side Story. All these shows that probably most African American directors know as well as they know Raisin or The Wiz or Ain't Misbehavin. We don't get to do those in stock. Nowhere. This doesn't happen very often. I won't say it never happens.
But I want to say on Broadway, do African Americans get to direct Dreamgirls? I hope.
Not on Broadway. We did it at the Muni, and Robert Clater, who was part of the original.
I worked with Robert too. I brought Robert in because I produced it in California, and Robert.
Yes, sure, I remember. Natalie Washin, I think, was in it, wasn't she?
Yep.
I love her. And that's because he was part of the original cast and he knows the show very well, and not a lot of people do. Dreamgirls is a complicated show, and you can't go, I'm going to put my stamp on it. If you do, you lose the show. Right. You have to do, Michael Bennett was pretty smart. It was he and Michael Peters, and Robert does a great job mounting the show. Yeah. So there's that one, but not many. I mean, I think George Wolfe, of course, directs many things. Yeah. And I think a few seasons ago, he directed a production of On the Town on Broadway. And there was a lot of scuttle about it. And it was like, well, the man is a Tony Award-winning director. You love him. He's done all these other things. Why shouldn't he be able to do On the Town? It's not Greek. I mean, it's a show. But it doesn't happen very often. Right.
Well, it needs to. It needs to. And
it definitely does.
And that's what we brought up on the show. Where are the black producers? Where are the black female directors?
Yeah, well, there are more female directors in the plays. I can't right off say a name of a few, Liesl Tommy and people, because they are reacting, if you will, to the black female writers. So that gives more of an avenue for that to happen, and it does happen more. Thank God, but there needs to be more. I mean, I was very fortunate. A couple of seasons or more ago, I directed a production of Carousel with the St. Louis Union Avenue Opera. I love Carousel. I've always loved Carousel. I got my first job singing If I Loved You. And it was really I realized it wasn't wasted on me that an African American director was directing this production. I wish I could have had more African Americans in it, but they chose the cast. It was sort of an opera world thing, which is different.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Which is different. But we did have some diversity, and I thought to myself, I'm really good at this. I just want to do more of the shows I know and love, as well as the African American product and shows. We can do that.
But as you said, you know Carousel and Oklahoma, as well as Raisin.
Well, these are things that anybody that's an avid devotee of the musical theater, that's what you grow up with, because that's mostly what was there, right? Mm-hmm. And you do know these shows, and you do know them well enough to reproduce them. And it's not a matter of it being outside of your experience. I won't go into the whole thing of we know the experience of white America. And it really is a shame. But you have to start somewhere. Yeah. So those young men who are the Tommy Tunes and the Jerry Mitchells, who start out in the ensemble, and then they become a this and they become a that, and then they choreograph, and then they direct, and then they move on and they become what those two men have become. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen for African American young dancers. No, not really. Not saying it doesn't happen, but it doesn't happen to the degree. There's no corridor all the way to the top like there is for us.
Is it because there's not enough shows, or
I would say again, not because there are not enough shows, because they're not given the opportunity to direct or choreograph shows that aren't Black. And there's only a few Black shows, and they're not done that often. Right. And to be honest with you, most Black shows, when they're done, are directed by someone white. The Wiz has yet to be directed in a major production on its way to Broadway by someone African American again.
Well, I want to tell you that, because I want to talk about Ain't Misbehavin'. So, I did what I thought was the first jukebox musical, and that was Leader of the Pack, which Michael Peters.
I love Leader of the Pack. I saw you in it 3 times.
And choreographed. And Michael, oh, God bless him, miss him so much. He was at my wedding, but he was, and here was a Black Jewish director from New York, right? Bernice Johnson's dance school. Now, and he took it from downtown at the Bottom Line. He brought it uptown. And at the time, I thought it was the first jukebox musical. But if you really go to what is a jukebox musical, it has to be Ain't Misbehavin'.
Oh, well, definitely, as far as the genre.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember I saw the show down at the Bottom Line, and Liz McCann and Nell Nugent came to me and they said, "What do you think?" Because I'd been in Ain't Misbehavin', they were thinking it's similar. I mean, Leader of the Pack to me had far more book. Ours was sort of an idea book.
Right.
We played out the ideas of vignettes. Leader of the Pack actually had a book, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
The jukebox part of it for me was the fact that it was all these songs that you knew, and they were coming at you. That was the jukebox part of it.
Right.
But I would say Ain't Misbehavin'. And then before Ain't Misbehavin', there was Bubbling Brown Sugar, which had all kinds of songs and everything in it. So I think that might have been the precursor to us. When they did Bubbling Brown Sugar in London, Ain't Misbehavin' was in the show.
Oh, really? Oh, so that was the first, because I remember when we opened, we got scathing reviews because they said this is not a musical. And then of course Buddy opened like 3 months later, was this huge hit. It was the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, one wonders, doesn't one?
Yeah.
Because Leader of the Pack was great. It was great off Broadway, and it was great on Broadway. And it just felt, I remember the reviews and everything, and it felt like they didn't really want to support it, to be frank.
Right.
We don't know why, but they didn't really want to support it. And some of the music that was in it, even if you didn't like the show, you loved the music.
Oh my gosh.
It was every song you loved.
It's just walking down the street.
Going to the chap. I mean, everything that was in all the Ellie Greenwich songs.
Yeah. And she was in it, Ken.
Yes, she came in at the end.
Yeah.
Ellie Greenwich was great. I loved Ellie Greenwich.
So you do Ain't Misbehavin'. Tell me about that. Was Richard Mulvey directed?
Richard Mulvey directed. It started off Broadway, I guess off Broadway, really, at the Manhattan Theater Club, which at that time was this great space over on East 70-something, 72nd, 3rd, 4th, somewhere over there. And they were putting together, I think they said, a review. and it was based going to be the music of Thomas Fats Waller, who I really wasn't that familiar with at the time. I knew the songs, Ain't Misbehavin, Honeysuckle Rose, and so forth, but and they were looking for 5 people to be these people. I mean, they had no clue as to what we were going to do, but they wanted 5 unique people. Make a long story short, they ended up with myself, Nell Carter, Andre DeShields, Amelia McQueen, and Irene Cara.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, in the first, off Broadway.
Oh, so
And
Irene was a part of the
original, yeah,
really?
yeah, yeah, she was in the original off Broadway, which was the thing that sold it for Broadway. Charlene Woodard came into the show when we went to Broadway. And I remember sitting down, and Murray Horowitz, who was the real juice behind the show, to be frank, because he was a jazz person, I like to say. Anyway, we sat down on the floor in his apartment in the Village, he and his wife, and just went through stacks of music, stacks of songs, and we'd read through the lyrics, and they, I don't even think anybody was there playing the piano at the time. We just kind of went through whatever was there and picked a big group of songs and then narrowed it down to another group of songs. And then we went into rehearsal. There were a few songs that we tried and went, that doesn't work, And there was the moment where Richard thought we would do a gospel number.
Right.
And we were like, wait a minute. We know every black show has to have a gospel number. But Fats Waller did not go to church, and he was not about that. I mean, his father, I believe, was a minister, and he played organ in church, but he wasn't about that.
No, he wanted no part of it.
No, he was exactly the opposite. We thought doing a gospel number in a show about Fats Waller is like singing an opera song in the middle of a show about Louis Armstrong. I mean, it does make sense. So that went out the window. But anyway, we opened off Broadway, and it really was an immediate success. People just were jamming to get in there. I remember one night Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis came. All these people just because the reviews came out, and they, and we were signed up to do the cast album before the show actually was going to Broadway. They wanted to record it, and in the interim, I mean, we closed in December, and we were already on our way to Broadway by March or February. So it was very fast. But
and how long did you end up doing the show for in total?
Off and on, I did it off and on 3 years.
Wow.
But I did like a year and some on Broadway, and then we did it in LA for a while, and then I did it in Paris.
And you've directed it many times too now, right?
Many times. And
well, you're gonna come directed for Studio Tenn. That's
fabulous. Yes, let's do it. Let's do it. It's a real privilege to do it because, for me, I've always been the kind of actor who watched everybody. I really did. And I kind of got not so much about where the direction was, but I watched the way the performers were bringing what they brought to the production. So that's what I try to go for. I tell people all the time, look, for instance, there's one Nell Carter, there's one Andre DeShields, but you want to use that to build on and then bring your own personality. Otherwise, it won't work.
Right.
Just imitating what we did is like second hand, third hand. But if you bring your own personalities, then the 5 people have something to play with. So it's really fun to do it with great groups. I just did it with a wonderful, wonderful cast at La Mirada at McCoy Rigby.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And the show won awards and everything. But they were a terrific, terrific group. I love you all. Yeah. I love all the other ones too. But,
I have so many things to ask you before. But let's talk about probably, well, at least on film. Yes. Although we don't get to see you, but would you say that Oogie Boogie was probably a big success in your career?
Yes. Well, it's odd because we all, ka-ching. My lawyer, Mark Sindroff, and I call it the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes, it does.
It does, and thank God. I mean, it was one of those things, again, that sort of came out of nowhere. And when the movie came out, it did well, but it wasn't a huge success. But in the years since, it's become this, we used to say cult favorite, but now it's called a classic because it's become that big,
Well, we're gonna show a clip from this, and of course, this is the famous Tim Burton, Danny Elfman film, The Nightmare Before Christmas. This is Mr. Ken Page as Oogie Boogie. Classic. Classic. So
I love when Lock, Shock, and Barrel. Like,
oh my God. So you do this. Oh, Love Night Candy. Thank you, Candy. She loved Light Nightmare.
thank you, Candy.
So tell me, okay, so you do the voice, you get the song and stuff, and you must have seen some of what the imagery was going to be, right? Did they tell you what Oogie Boogie was going to look like?
They showed me, yes, they had the storyboard, for the whole number. Yeah.
Right.
And they showed me that. And I think the armature, the physical armature was done. I can't remember now. I think so. I remember seeing it. I don't know if it was before or after. But you still have no idea because obviously they're going to do that movement to what you record, Right. And I had no idea what it was going to be. I mean, the song is great, Danny Elfman. He wrote this.
And Danny's Oingo Boingo, right?
Yes, from Oingo Boingo.
Yeah.
And a huge devotee of Cab Calloway and so on and so forth. So that's the inspiration for the song itself.
Scotty Phillips says he says I sing this song every year with my family as we sing through all of this movie. So they must.
Yes, Scotty, you must.
And is it at Christmas time they do it, or at Halloween they do it?
They start at Halloween and sing until Christmas.
Right.
People always ask, is it a Halloween movie or is it a Christmas movie? And I always say yes.
Whatever you'd like.
Yes, whatever works for you.
It's amazing. And I know you've done it live on stage with actually the movie behind you, right? On a big screen and stuff like that.
Yeah, we've been very lucky. We've done it, I think, 3 or 4 times now at the Hollywood Bowl, which is terrific. Awesome. And this past December, we did a little mini tour in the UK. We played Scotland, and we did at Wembley Arena 2 nights in London and in Dublin. And it was packed, sold out each place, which is amazing. God. It's amazing.
It's a hit, like you said. It's become, it was a cult hit, and then it became this and it's a classic. It's a classic holiday movie from October through December.
And luckily, we're all still able to get up there and actually sing it. Catherine O'Hara, myself, Danny, and it's great.
So I want to talk about, first of all, how we met, and then I want to go back. I want to play our game again. Remember the lyrics.
Yes. Okay.
So now I was trying to think. We have done 2 film things together. You did the television series Charmed, didn't you?
Yes. I played one of the higher R people or something. Did you do it as well?
I did. I played a hippie. And I brought my own wig. I played a hippie from the 60s.
As you do.
I brought a Paul Huntley wig. It looked
great. I think hang on to those Paul Huntley wigs.
Yes. And then we also did All Do Anything together. Let's talk about that. So All Do Anything was the James L. Brooks movie that was supposed to be a musical with music by Prince and Sinead O'Connor, and it was starred Nick Nolte, and Woody Harrelson was in the movie, and Vicki Lewis was in the movie, and Ken Page was in the movie, and who else?
Rosie O'Donnell.
That's what Rosie O'Donnell's, and we all thought we were doing a musical, right?
Yes, we did.
And
we didn't have a. Well, I was going to say we didn't have a song, but I realized Rosie and I. Rosie played the makeup lady who was on the film within the film, and I played the hair guy, and we basically improvised our whole scene, And
that was me too. I had
there was a lot of that.
Nick Nolte, and it was a basic improvised thing too.
Yeah. I think it did add a certain kind of spontaneity to the film, but I think all of that was leading up to the idea of the music being there. Mm-hmm. So when you saw it without the music, sometimes you're like, what is everybody talking about? It didn't really, it was good, it was fine, and it worked, but I just wish we could have seen it with all the music in it. That would have been terrific.
We have Denise Hicks, who is the artistic director for the Shakespeare Festival. She says, my son watched that movie 3 times a day when he was little, and he's working on an animation degree right now as a
bless him. Bless him. Tell him I said bravo. Put me in your movie.
Yeah. I need a job.
Don't forget about me.
So I was thinking about you and I when we met, and I wasn't sure if this was the second time, but you and I did 3 Penny Opera together.
Yes, with Reprise.
That's right. And you played the street singer, right? Is that the Okay.
Well, first I should say you and I met backstage at Lead of the Pack.
Oh, Lead of the Pack. Okay, so that was the first time.
Yeah.
I'm glad you remember. So you had come see the show, and I done
the show. And Peter Dallas, who was a good friend of mine, was very good friends with Ellie Greenwich. You remember Peter?
Sure.
Very good friends with Ellie Greenwich. And I think I saw it twice, and we came backstage, and you were very charming.
Oh, and I had brown hair, a lot of brown.
Yes, you did. Well, I did too.
Yeah.
So that's the first time. And then we did Three Penny Opera with Reprise. And God bless him, Glenn Casale put together this role for me because it really didn't exist. I mean, I was just saying Mac the Knife at the beginning.
Right. Which brings us to our next version of Remember This Lyric. So you ready? Here we go.
Yes.
Oh, the shock has, such teeth, dear.
And he shows them pearly white. That's all I remember.
Just a jackknife has old
Maggie, dear.
And he keeps it
out of sight. Yes, you were Mackie, right?
Yeah. I know the Bobby Darin version.
Yeah, so hey. Well, mine was very sort of Weimar German. You had to stomp. The shock has pearly teeth.
That's right.
Yeah, but Glenn made up this role for me. There was this sort of narrative where they would show these signs that told you what the next scene was. It was supposed to be on a little oleo on the side or something. But he made this role for me where I would come out and I would say, and now we go to the house of blah, blah, and he made this roll up that was really cool, but it wasn't really in the show, which was terrific.
Well, you were awesome as always. You have had the most extraordinary career. And then of course you're in the movie of Dreamgirls and Torch Song Trilogy. I mean, you've gotten to do it all, Ken. Have you ever headlined at the MGM Grand?
Well, not the MGM Grand, but Caesars.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I knew it was one of those.
Yeah, I've been very, very blessed. I won't say lucky because luck seems to imply that it wasn't something you would get. You just happened to have.
You were blessed with talent, and then we got blessed to receive that talent.
That's lovely. But I do feel blessed. I mean, what I love about looking back on what I have done is that I've gotten to, as you said, I've gotten to work in just about every area of the entertainment industry. I've done my own cabaret concert thing since 1976. I did my first act at a club called Big Julie's in New York. I was doing Guys and Dolls, if you can believe it. And I've been doing it ever since. I've done 54 Below and here in St. Louis, Jazz Bistro. And I love doing that. And I always did it so that people knew what I could do outside of the characters that I played, But it sort of went on its own and became a thing. And I feel so blessed that when I moved to LA, my big thing was while Broadway was wonderful and I loved it from the bottom of my heart, I wanted to do things that would last, that wouldn't go ephemerally into the stratosphere and into the air. And I was lucky enough, knock wood, to get to do that. And that's not always the case for theater performers. Sometimes you do something and it goes, if there's not a cast album, you're done.
It evaporates.
Yeah, it evaporates, which is the beauty of it. But I wanted to be seen later,
Yeah, sure.
And it's interesting because I just watched Hamilton the other night, which is glorious. But I was so lucky. Ain't Misbehavin was filmed for NBC TV special. Cats was done. We filmed it in London later on. And I feel very fortunate that my Broadway performances, some of them have been captured,
have been immortalized. That's awesome. We play a little game at the very end of the show, and it's called "You Become the Host." You become the host, so you get to ask me one question. I can't promise I'll tell you the truth, but you get to ask me one question, anything.
Okay, I'm going to ask this. It's a little touchy, but I'll follow it up because I've been in the same position. And I think we talked about when we did Aida together the last time. How was it playing Zozar after having played Radames?
Oh, it's a great question. So Zozar is the father of Radames. Yes. It's like you meet your mortality. And I've had to do it a few times. I've also done it where I played the roles that my dad actually played, and I stepped into those shoes. But Rotamaze was such an incredible thing for me. I did it for a year, and I did it and then I got to do it in New York after a year on the road. And then when I got to come to the Muni and got to play it, and I was watching the young guy who played Rotamaze, I kept thinking, that was me. I did that one. You know what I mean? And you realize there's that moment where you sort of take stock, because you and I have been both lucky. We've been in this business for four plus decades.
Right.
And I think about those moments. I had the same experience when I did Smallville, and Tom Welling, who played Superman, I played sort of like, you know, Lex Luthor, or not Lex Luthor, but I played the father of Henry Smalls. And when you become the father of the young, you know, lead you were playing at one point, it's a real kind of like,
yeah,
wow.
It's a reality check in your mailbox is what it really is.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah. Well, it's a great, like you said, it doesn't happen often. We did Guys and Dolls at the Muni a couple of seasons ago. Last season. Was it last season? Anyway, I played Arvide, the grandfather. And it was really, it's a beautiful role, you know. But it was that same thing for me. I remember sitting there at times going, wow, this was my first Broadway show playing that part. And now I'm playing the grandfather. But it came to me to say thank you to the universe, because look, I'm around long enough to play the grandfather in a show where I played, you know.
That's right.
And we're very fortunate to be able to do that.
And that's the thing. And that's what I always say too. It's like, thank you, Lord. You've allowed me to actually be here this long and to make a living in this business all the way up the ladder. You know,
that's right.
Ken, you are a glorious human being. You're an incredible
as well. You are as well. And you know, I love and adore you.
I adore you. Thank you for being. Oh, my wife has one comment. She said,
yes,
about she says, if you want to talk about it, I'll put it up. My wife is talking about the other. Oh, it says, I was in that movie too. Oh, she's talking about I'll Do Anything. Did you know that she was in that, Ken?
I did not. No.
Yes. Yeah, she was one of Twyla's dancers. And they had 4 months of pre-production on that thing. And then
really?
And they never ended up on screen because, again,
you think it's somewhere, all of that material? Yeah, I mean, they just did that with Cotton Club. You know, they did a restore, they called it Cotton Club Restore, and they put a lot of the musical pieces back in it, which is great.
That's what James Brooks should do. Put it together as you know, as a
absolutely.
musical.
And with Prince's music, God rest that he's not here, it would be such a great thing, even if they only released it on DVD or whatever. It'd be great.
We will lobby for it. You are a gem. I love you. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
It's a pleasure, an absolute pleasure.
When we're back to some normalcy, you will come, you will direct, you will be a part of us.
I would love it. Absolutely. It's a promise.
Great to see you. Back. Have a great one.
Good care. Stay safe. Wash your hands.
Oh, the incomparable Mr. Ken Page. He is a gem. Anyway, that's our show for tonight. Oh, David says, I have loved Studio Tenn for years, one of the best theater production companies in the country. Thank you, David. And continue to watch Studio Tenn Talks. We will be back. Alice says that makes the gift even more meaningful. Thank you. And we hope that things get back to going soon. And they will come soon. But until then, keep watching Studio Tenn Talks. Please remember, we survive on theater tickets and we survive on donations. And right now we can't sell tickets. So please donate. You see it at the bottom of our screen there. StudioTennTalks.com. It has been an absolute glorious night tonight to be with Ken. And I always leave with a song of goodbye. And I think tonight I'm going to repeat one just because it's the most famous one, which is, I'm so glad we've had this time together. I can't be Carol Burnett, not a chance. Good night, everybody.